This is the perfect movie scene. Many of you may have seen it when it went viral on social media a few years ago. Unscrupulous people uploaded the clip without attributing it, so it came across to some folks as real CCTV footage. But it's actually from Force Majeure, which came out in 2014 and was written and directed by Ruben Ostlund, who's also responsible for the sleeper hit of 2022, Triangle of Sadness. So, what makes this scene perfect, and how did it ruin the rest of the film? First, let's break it down. A Scandinavian family of 4 are holidaying in the French Alps, and they're having lunch on a restaurant balcony when they hear an explosion at the top of the adjacent mountain, followed by an avalanche. Initially, our family and the other patrons are merely curious, not afraid, because it's a controlled explosion that's done periodically to prevent larger avalanches. But then, the people quickly realize that the cloud of snow above the avalanche is gathering mass, speeding up, and heading towards them, so they rise from their seats. When it's clear that the snow cloud isn't dispersing, they all make a run for safety. The whole time, our attention is on the family in the middle of the frame, but then it switches to the dad when he bolts off without stopping to check on or help his family. When the snow clears up seconds later, we see that no one's hurt. We also find out that mom and the kids had taken cover under the table. A few seconds later, dad casually strolls into frame, sits back down with his family and asks, completely failing to acknowledge his shameful action. The whole sequence is about 3 minutes. What's really poetic is that we can compare the first and last frame of the sequence and see that there are very little aesthetic differences. And yet, the family dynamic has completely changed. The kids are in shock, and mom's feelings towards dad is in crisis. I doubt there's a better 3-minute scene that depicts a father's worth dropping to zero so quickly. There are a few neat little moments to emphasize just how disgraceful the situation is. Here, dad is so confident in the harmlessness of the avalanche that he's not even interested in trying to calm his family down, who are panicking. The son is especially freaked out, and all dad can do is put his arm on him and tell him it's okay, all while continuing to film the avalanche. And finally, when he believes that the threat is imminent, dad lets go of his son, then grabs his gloves and phone before making a dash for it without taking one look back at his family. He even shoves a guy aside. The icing on the cake has to be when dad takes his time to return to the table. When the scene is done, you can pretty much guess what the rest of the film entails. It's mostly about addressing the incident through dialogue. To be fair, the conversations are quite interesting. Everything from the dad being in denial about his actions to the discussions about how much blame he should bear, since his survival instincts may have clouded his better judgment. The problem is that the rest of the film takes up 1 3/4 hours, and none of it comes close to the brilliance of the avalanche scene. None of the philosophical explorations of fear, instinct, and fatherhood can measure up to what we ultimately know to be true. The dad fucked up, and there are no satisfying excuses to entertain. As a parent, you may be called upon to put yourself in harm's way if your family's safety depends on it. If you don't, there's really nothing more to discuss because there might not be a next time. All of us, regardless of our cultural differences, understand this basic tenet of parenthood. It doesn't even matter if the biology doesn't fully support this belief. We believe it to be true. Watching Force Majeure is kind of like watching a film in which a man has been caught for cheating on his wife repeatedly, and the rest of the film is just conversations about the evolutionary justifications for his actions. Sure, it can be thought-provoking, but as the audience, We can only take in so much bullshit before the story becomes tiresome. The other disappointing thing about the film is that it doesn't explain why the children are sympathetic towards their father. They're old enough to comprehend that he abandoned them when they needed him the most. So why don't we get to hear the kids describe their feelings on the incident? Why do they seem to disapprove of the mother when she was the one who tried to save them? It would have been nice to hear their perspective. I feel that the film would have been more satisfying if the avalanche scene were to happen towards the end. So at the beginning, we see a doting father who's great with his family. He's attentive to his wife's needs. He knows how to communicate with his children. He's always there for his family. By every metric, we're looking at the perfect husband and father. But then, the avalanche scene happens, and we now have something to grapple with long after the credits stop rolling. We'll be asking ourselves, what is the worth of a parent who checks all the boxes except the one that could matter most? With all that said, I would still recommend giving Force Majeure a watch because it's a good reminder that stories can be told without special effects, multiple jump cuts, and complicated plot threads. Alright, that's it from me. Thank you for watching.